Cancer and ACS put out these big press releases that cancer went down by 2% this last year, between 2019. Prostate cancer went up 5%. Okay? And I think we can all understand that it's going to continue to go up because of the almost decade-long time of not doing the screening as we should, based on the Preventive Services Task Force. So, in the VA, I know you guys are all veterans. How many of you actually get your care or are registered with the VA? Okay, a few guys. So I highly encourage you, if you're not, to go sign up with the VA because it's changed, it's different. And we're going to talk about why it's different. But there's some of the best care on the planet is in the VA, and if not, they have the mechanisms to actually refer you out to private practice and out into the community. It's called the Community Care Network. So today, as of the end of 2019, study was completed. We know that there's 489,000 active cases of prostate cancer in the VA. Okay, there's 16,000 that are metastatic, and we see an average of 14,000 new cases every year diagnosed. Okay, so that 14,000, that number is going up. It's been, it was 12, 13, 14, probably estimating 15 or so this next year. The part of that is there hasn't been a standard screening policy in place, or even any kind of policy related to prostate cancer in the VA. And one of our missions as educators and raising awareness is to try to change that, and we're trying to change that even with some legislation now coming up, hopefully any day now. In 2018, this administration and Congress passed a bill called the Mission Act, and it was passed in 2018, but in June of 2019, so not even a year ago, it was implemented. What that does is it provides for a new organization called the Community Care Network. They funded that at $100 billion. And you don't hear about this in the news, and it's not common knowledge, but it has $100 billion attached to it for care of veterans outside of the VA, so in the community. And that's over a 6-year period, so it's about $16 billion a year that's available to be spent on your care. If VA can't provide it, new eligibility criteria, so it was the distance and time, those are still there, but it also now includes a clause that says, if in the opinion of the physician and the patient, the best care option is out in the community, you can exercise that plan. And it's a catch-all. They didn't change all of the language, they just added that one phrase in there. So our mission when we started this organization at Veterans Prostate Cancer Awareness was really to promote awareness and education around veterans and active duty military members. Educate veterans on the proper care and treatment alternatives because they're not all available inside the VA. Some are, some aren't. And it depends on which hospital that you go to. There's 170 hospitals across the United States, largest integrated healthcare system on the planet. 9 million vets inside there, 7 million guys over the age of 40. So that's a big market. It's a big focused market, and we don't have a standard of care across that whole continuum. It just doesn't exist. So that's one thing we're pushing very hard this year to have changed, to put some standards and some common policies in place. We also like to promote and educate both the physicians and the staff because they're overwhelmed, they don't have time, but bring new technologies to them or new information, new medications, new devices like the CyberKnife. How do you get access to those new things? Because it's a disparity of care. Veterans shouldn't have a different care perspective than anybody else in society, right? So this is part of our mission is you got to get the same care, or we believe we deserve the same care as anybody else out in society. So when you look at Zero's mission, right? Save lives, stop pain, suffering by advancing research, encouraging action, and providing education. Pretty similar to what VPCA's mission was. So I was encouraged by my friend Jamie and Kathy Costin, as I mentioned. So we are merging the two organizations. We'll be done by April, and I will just be a division of Zero, focused on veterans outreach. There's a lot of programs I'm going to mention to you that we're accomplishing this year. We've already made some great strides thanks to the incredible people in this organization, and they're doing great things You know them all since you're here participating, and it's, we are gonna make a difference. This is our year to make blue the new pink, okay? We're gonna raise enough awareness to change that around, okay? So, one goal this year is to get all these zero resources, the 360s, the mentors, the online resources, make them available to veterans. If you go to the VA website and you look up prostate cancer, that was last updated in 2013. Okay? And here's some gas and things like that. That's what we're dealing with. Okay, so we've got to get the thing into this century at least, right? The resources that are available continue to be updated. We have a whole staff that does nothing but update resources at zero. They get it from pharma, they get it from the device manufacturers, urology departments, the heads of research. So it is the best place to come and get your research. It's accurate. It's not just information, it's actual accurate information that you can rely on. So that's one mission is to get that stuff out there. We just did a veterans cancer survey, so all of you guys that are veterans, please pass it around to your network. It's been published, it's been out for about 3 weeks, and it has to do a lot with military aviators. You probably saw an article possibly about military aviators with a higher incidence rate of cancer, all cancer, but prostate cancer particularly. So we did a survey. We've gotten over 350 responses back in about 2.5 to 3 weeks. Okay, so that's going to be out till April. You can go on the website. We'll show you how to get to it in a minute, and please pass it around through your networks. I mean, you know all these guys. We're also doing whatever we can do. We want to make sure that veterans have some special issues when you're trying to access outside care through the Mission Act or even in the VA. So we're going to educate the 0360 and the mentor staff on some of those veteran issues. So if you're a vet, they'll at least know where to direct you in the VA system and how to interface with that. So that's one of our objectives this year. The other is the run walk events. So this year we now have permission to actually advertise the run walks inside every VA in the city of the run walk. So the first time the VA has ever allowed private industry or anybody to go inside and advertise in the hallways. So you'll see us, if you're a vet and you do the run walks, I need to talk to you because we want you to volunteer to help the local champions or the local race directors with interfacing with the public affairs offices in the VAs. So it's a very specific ask, and we would ask all of you to please volunteer and help them navigate the halls of those VAs. So that's my next cue there, asking you to be a volunteer, a vet volunteer for zero. One is to deliver information to the hospitals. We're allowed to now put information in primary care, urology, and oncology offices of all those VAs. Okay, so to get the word out, to start talking to guys, get them signed up as a zero champion and give them the resources and knowledge as to how to take care of the disease. We are working on legislative issues. There's the Veterans Prostate Cancer Treatment and Research Act. Congressman Neil Dunn from Florida, he's a urologist in Congress. He's drafted language that's hopefully going to hit the floor this week that actually directs the VA to put in place a prostate cancer clinical pathway, which means it's across the entire continuum from screening all the way to palliative care. How does the VA approach this in a standardized fashion? So all 170 of those hospitals would have to get together, and they would be forced to follow this prostate cancer. It's really the way modern hospitals are working now, right? It's a continuum of care that gives you the options at each stage that you're going through. And really, what we think the best part about it is it's going to force early screening, right? And we're trying to, as a part of that, we're also working to make veterans a high-risk population. There's 2 studies out that show that veterans across the board have a 40% higher incidence rate of developing prostate cancer than the general population. We don't know why. We know, but we don't know. It's because of our exposure to radiation sources, various chemicals. We all thought that it would go down, or the numbers would all go down when Agent Orange and that population died off and they finished with Vietnam and off they went, but it's not the case. It's actually going up. The numbers for veterans are increasing from a prostate cancer perspective. And it's all this, I was never never touched Agent Orange or whatever, but it's, there's just other sources. It's occupational hazards and that sort of thing that are causing those issues. The, last week, Military Pilot Cancer Incident Study Act, H.R. 5858, was introduced in the House by Congressman Luria and Congressman Kinzinger. Kinzinger is he's an Air National Guard F-16 pilot, and Congressman Luria, she flew F-18s in the Navy in Virginia Beach. So we worked together on drafting some of that legislation, and it's really, this one is really a wake-up call for the Department of Defense. You need to go back and look, why are all these pilots coming down with these various cancers? And I think it's getting some traction. It's waking up some people. We're talking also to some of the aircraft manufacturers now about what they can do to help get an answer to these things. There's Congressman Panetta he had a draft of a study on the radiation exposure relating to prostate cancer from aircraft. And this has sort of been wrapped up into this one. He's leaving that, he may introduce that as well. We also combined together all of our fundraising support to help this organization grow. So anything that I was doing from Veterans Prostate Cancer Awareness is now just tied into zero. So we go and talk to pharma and everybody else with a single voice, and we're just a division using all of the zero resources to focus them into the veterans community. So this is one thing that we like to promote a lot because it happened. This is the Mission Act, so $100 billion appropriated over 6 years. There are new eligibility requirements for veterans, and I will, if you have your email, you'll get a copy of that eligibility. There's 8 or 7 new criteria. It's not just based on time and distance anymore. So that criteria are very clear. It's not hard to read them, and it's you need to use all those criteria are or statements, not and statements. It's not time and distance. It's time or distance, or your physician and the patient feel it's the best case or the best care. Then you can request the Mission Act monies to go out to community care. One of the issues that the physicians in the VA are asking us to do as zero, and when we reach patients or the community, is encourage qualified providers, not just any provider. Right? So look for, if you have very good doctors that you're seeing that you would recommend, just ask them if they have a contract with TriWest or Optum. That's the key, right? These are the 2 insurance companies that administer that money. It's not administered. They don't get reimbursed from the VA. They get reimbursed from those 2 corporations. And right now, I just spoke with Congressman Dunn on Friday. He gets a report from the VA every month on the payment times, and the delays in getting the money payments. They're on a 9-day delay right now. So you get paid back in 9 days on average when you administer this program. So that's an incentive, because most of those doctors, the good ones out there, are taking 30, 60, 90 days to be reimbursed from their health care or from the insurance companies or Medicare. So this is mine. When I had my treatment done last year, it was reimbursed in 4 days. And that was the CyberKnife Center up in Seattle. So they just submitted the invoice, it's all online, and they got their payment back in 4 days. So it's working. Yes, ma'am?
You know, at least North Carolina, they're switching from TriWest to Optum.
Yes.
So any new referral has to go through Optum.
Correct.
And I just spoke to the VA Community Care in Salisbury, which is over our area, and they said they don't have a single provider in North Carolina who is in the Optum network. And they said that, but they will give you a referral through Optum, but there is no one to go to. And they said even Duke hasn't joined, they refuse, UNC, Chapel Hill refuses, Wake Forest Baptist, all the big centers, they are all refusing, and because the big centers refuse, the little doctors are refusing too.
No, you're right.
So it's a useless, option.
It's a useless option if we don't get good providers to sign up. And most of the providers, that's our job. We try to communicate that to those providers, is that, and we're showing them real-time examples now of how they get reimbursed and how the system works. And so we're actively seeking to encourage those providers to sign up for the program. And it does work. It's working across the country in a lot of good places, but you're right. there's a perception out there that a lot of medical providers had a lot of bad experiences with the old VA, where they would take a patient and they would never get paid, or it would take 2 years to get reimbursed.
It's still that way for Tri-West in North Carolina, because he's under Tri-West for
Okay.
a lot of his stuff. And Tri-West, if they pay in a year, you're lucky.
Well,
And it's Medicare rates.
Yeah,
And
you have to be Medicare
right,
rates.
so it's Medicare rates, and they wait, in North Carolina, Virginia, they're waiting a year. And the doctors aren't going to join that kind of,
well, I'd love to talk to you more about, and give some specific examples, because I could talk to I talk to Tri-West once a week about this.
okay,
And
well, you
if
ask
it-
them about
And I know
North
that
Carolina.
Optum is replacing all of Tri-West, because HealthNet used to be in on the East Coast. They were miserable, they did a bad job, they got
So
fired.
does Tri-West.
And so, so that Tri-West is bad. My Tri-West in California is awesome.
Right.
They're spectacular. But Optum has taken all the East Coast divisions or states, and we'd love to talk to you more about it. And we're going to go down. We're trying to recruit these guys in these very specific areas. And so if that's one that we need to go hit, we'll call them and go.
Because I call every week, every week.
Okay.
They know me by name, Tri-West, and the VA, they're like, you're David's wife.
Good. No, well, that's what you have to do sometimes, but I'm happy to help and happy to pitch in, and that's why we're here. So let's trade some details on that, and we'll start making some phone calls, come and see some of those providers. Yes, ma'am.
And Mike, I think it's worth sharing that you're gonna be, Zero is gonna be, you're gonna be at many conferences where these physicians and administrators are educating them on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
So we're targeting
Well,
the
one
medical
is-
providers that way.
Yeah, we're going to talk to a group called GPO in April. They're probably they are the largest urology large group provider out there. 3,000 physicians, and I don't know how many, they're in 49 states. So I will find you a person that will be signed up with Optum within a couple of weeks.
A good person, and it has to be an academic medical center.
No, they're GPOs. They do good work because of just their size, and that's where a lot of, Dr. Osborne will talk in a minute, but that's one of the things that you can have a lot of doctors, right? And they range from not so good to some of the best in the world, right? The real good guys typically want to go to a secure organization. They're in business too, right? So they want all the resources to help them run their business and be successful. So that's why you have a much better probability of finding great physicians in a little bit larger setting, because they're well taken care of there. They're allowed to practice instead of doing everything else. So it's a good source. We think it's the right way to go. The VA is liking what we're doing. They're helping us, and we're helping them by trying to sign up these qualified providers. So let's continue this discussion and do it. We'll get you some solutions for this, okay? We're also working with pharmaceutical teams to help educate some of these good providers out there. So that you can imagine the pharmaceutical guys, they go and they see every doctor out there trying to sell their wares and their new meds and whatever. They're actually coming on board and helping us by finding the good qualified providers and helping to educate them or introduce them as to how to sign up as a provider for this program. And so that's been it's a good thing, because now the pharmaceutical guys can actually go in and talk to the doctors about a positive program instead of just asking them for money for their wares, right? And they're enjoying it, and they're getting engaged with us as well. So it's just another form of supporting us. Well, we're also talking to professional sports associations. What does every guy that's over the age of 40 do on the weekend? Somewhere in that weekend, he's probably going to watch some sporting event, right? So we're talking to Major League Baseball, the NFL, PGA, NASCAR. So by the fall, we should see some movement from some of these organizations. And we think that's where we're going to get a big voice, and we're going to see a big impact for guys, just to raise awareness that you have a prostate, right? And you need to go get it checked. So that's one of these things that they're signing up to help us out as well. So you'll see some big impacts hopefully later in the year. So there's some specific things that you can take advantage of if you're a veteran right now and you're in the VA system. So if you're newly diagnosed and you haven't had any treatment yet, you just had your biopsy, there's a program in West LA, VA, run by Dr. Nicholas, and he's doing the PSMA PET CT scan, okay? I've had it done, it's available, it's laying down on the table and getting a CT scan. This is incredible new technology. It's not FDA approved yet in the United States, but it is all over Australia and in Europe and everywhere else. And we have a radiation oncologist with us here that can actually attest to what the details are around that and the importance of doing that or the exhuman scans and that sort of thing. So, highly recommend it. If you're a vet, it costs you nothing, and you've been diagnosed, you go to LA, and he can do it, or he's now been able to actually order it remotely. I know in Tampa, and I think in Houston as well. But if you're interested in more of that, we can talk about it. So, second one here, every vet that has prostate cancer in the VA, you will get a DNA sequencing, okay? Dr. Matt Reddick at UCLA is running a program now. They receive money and funding. So every one of you that are in the VA system, no cost, you'll get a DNA sequencing. That's both genomic and genomic, right? So it's available to you. It takes probably 3 months then to get your genetic counseling done because there's such a backlog, and there's just not enough genetic counselors in the entire United States. So it just takes a while to get you counseling, but you'll at least know what issues that you've got with your DNA. For me, mine is I'm a BRCA2 positive person. So my daughter and I get to go through that process. We go talk to the counselors and figure out what she's going to do. So I know that I have a JAK2 mutation, so which causes another blood issue. But anyway, it's they're great. You're getting this all inside the VA. So this is part of this change where these funds came available when they've made some big improvements in what they're trying to offer. You know, they've got a big issue. They've got to apply a lot of resources into trying to correct this thing. Yeah, so here's the quote out of the Mission Act. You're eligible to request the best care if the veteran and physician request a referral. Right, so you can do it if you want to use it. It depends on which VA you're at. I think it's very situational right now, but we can talk more about how those things. You're eligible for a PSA test any time of the year in the VA. Any day, you can get 100 of them, you can get one of them, you can do whatever, but you should at least get an annual one on your blood test, on your blood panel for your annual physical. I had friends where Medicare is only paying for one, right? They're vets, tell them, go to the VA and get your blood taken. They'll do a PSA test. Yes, sir.
I'm trying to remember from my last physical, I'm not sure they're doing the ultra-sensitive PSA though.
They're not.
So we need to push on that.
Yeah, well, that and the 4K and PHI, I think, are the two new ones that are coming along. We're also trying to push. I'm trying to push that we do a lot more study and research and try to develop, better detection up front, right? Not rely on the PSA. Everybody will tell you the PSA is not reliable or whatever. It's all we have right now, or the new ultra-sensitive ones, right? But you got to go do it. I mean, it doesn't do no good if you don't go get the blood taken, right? I mean, we all kind of know the importance of it, but this is passing it around, making people aware. Just go get started. Go get your blood test. Tell your employees, tell your friends, tell your family, go get your blood test. It's not that big a deal. So it's, but yeah, I agree. They're not doing that. We need to look into better research and better tests. I always tell our guys, get a second opinion, okay? The VA, you're always going to probably see a urologist first. That's just our culture. I highly recommend that you always go see a radiation oncologist after that, because you're probably going to get 2 different courses of action. And a lot of VAs don't have a radiation department. There's only 47 radiation departments in the VA system, right? So you need to go get a radiation oncology. I recommend it. It's just a second opinion and a second pathway for treatment. Okay, and there's things out there that the radiation oncology technology is advancing as fast as regular oncology. So new devices like CyberKnife is out there, and there's new techniques coming along all the time that are presenting themselves. So I highly recommended that you get a second opinion. And again, it doesn't cost you anything. It costs you 2 hours a day, and if you need to do it as a Mission Act issue, they'll pay for it. So exercise that a little bit. There's an oncology program inside the VA, the Prostate Cancer Foundation, out in Los Angeles, Mike Milken's organization. They gave $50 million to the VA 2 years ago for a precision oncology program. It was to establish 12 centers of excellence around the United States focused on prostate cancer. Now, those centers the program hasn't really taken off as a treatment program, but there's 8 centers now established that are doing high-end research, and they're looking for clinical trials, and they're good centers of research. Really, it's more for research. It's something to know. If you're interested in clinical trials, those 8 centers are always looking for people to get into them. They've got all sorts of different studies that are happening. And again, it's all VA, it's all paid for, it doesn't cost you anything. And I'm happy to introduce you to that. We're trying to make that program, give it some life to get some more interest in it, and actually introduce more researchers into that program so they can do some collaborative research and support. So, a couple of studies out trying to collect more data on veterans, right? We're at there's a study that was done in 2010 that shows that we're 40%, have that 40% higher incidence rate than the general population. The issue going on right now, this study that was just done, this core data study right here, in 2019, it has all of this 489,000 prostate cancer patients, but the problem is we're gaining new metastatic prostate cancer patients on first diagnosis at a rate of 14%. Right, so 14% of new I'll restart this. The rate of prostate cancer, metastatic prostate cancer on your first diagnosis is 14% inside the VA. It's 7% in the general population. Okay, so we're twice as bad as at screening and diagnosing this thing as the general population, is what that study is showing. So this is an emphasis around earlier screening or comprehensive discussions and education, and it's really what's giving us the impetus to go in and educate the VA with our resources and with our technology that Zero has put in place. I want to mention to you, there's some really incredible news that's come out through an investigation on all cancers. It was done by Ms. Tara Kopp at McClatchy News, and she's put a lot of stuff on the internet. It's a really good investigative study to look at all cancers, but it's all focused on military members, and it's everything from the burn pits to the K2 pollutions in, where was it? Kazakhstan, or where was it? Uzbekistan, to military aviation, higher incidence of cancer. So I will send all this stuff out to you and make these are programs that, little short programs on the internet that go along with the articles that have been written, but please pass them around through social media and let's raise some awareness. Let's get the issue out there and get people to pay attention to this. Get your congressmen and all that kind of stuff. You've learned how to do that, so we'll do that. And this is just a summary down here of of those legislative activities that we talked about that are actually taking place. I think the best one is going to be Congressman Dunn's instituting of the clinical pathway in the VA around prostate cancer, and really put some standards in, some real modern medical standards, put those things in place. Lastly, we formed a prostate cancer working group. It consists of 3 of the seniors, undersecretaries in the VA, for research and development, specialty care, and community care network. Mark Upton is the undersecretary for that. It also involves VPCA and Zero now together. Prostate Cancer Foundation's in it. And then also industry, we've invited pharma and device manufacturers to come in to sit on the panel and really more observe than anything else. The three focus areas, one is support implementation of this pathway with the VA. So really push out through all of our membership, push on Congress to pass that thing. Introduce this source of standardized and education resources from Zero. We've already submitted to the VA formally some of our education materials that we hand out. We're going through a process to try. You have to go through, you can imagine the bureaucracy of, they got to read it, make sure you make changes or whatever. And so we're going through that process to get our information in so that the physicians can actually hand it out to the patients. So we don't have to do all that, but we'll get there eventually, but it's really a source or a conduit for us to put all those materials inside the VA so that the guys can get access to it. And then lastly, facilitate collaboration amongst researchers. What we're finding from CDMRP, that what you've heard about, private industry is doing its own research, developing drugs and new techniques and new machines and everything else. And then the VA has its own set of researchers. They have a budget of about $800 million a year that they spend on just research, on medical research. So there's a lot of collaboration that needs to happen so that we avoid duplicating the research out there. And if we're going to spend the money, let's find out where everybody's at in the different programs. And so they've asked us, the VA, Head of Research and Development's asked us to facilitate that networking. So we're trying to figure out what the best way to do that is. I think we've recommended maybe just a cocktail party where we all share business cards to start with. I mean, that really is just to get the conversation going amongst these researchers to start looking at collaboration and actually coordination of all that research that's going on. So what's our call to action? I encourage everybody to sign up, go to the VA. If you're not a part of it, it's kind of hard to complain or to understand the way it works. We have some people in the back row that you clearly know how it works. Right?
I think we know more how it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, we got to make it work. We got to change it, and if you're not in it, you can't change it, right? So, next is the run walks. We're going to make a big difference this year because we're going to push on those VAs to get their people out, get the staff, the doctors, the patients, other veterans. This year at the run walks, you'll be identified as a vet. You get a patch on your arm as a veteran, so you'll be identified so that you can talk about those issues. You can help promote it. Call your other vet friends. If you're in the VFW or American Legion, help them and get them to come out and participate. Support the legislation. Call your congressman. Talk to them about this. Send a letter to them and tell them they need to pass these laws. We are seeking veteran champions here. So if you're in, I've already got your name because you're here. So we're going to reach out to you and ask you to help volunteer to help us with that communication to the VA. We're not going to let them wait and ask us. We're just going to go push the stuff onto them, okay? And then this survey that we have out there that I mentioned to you, this is where you can find it. It's zerocancer.org, that survey. And then we have a new website at zerocancer.org/veterans. So it's got some veteran-specific stuff. It talks about the Mission Act. It talks about providers and that sort of thing. It tells you, where your VAs are, what the phone numbers are to call if you need that resource. So that's it for me. I want to also let you know that we do have a physician in the room that can actually answer specific questions about your cancer, about your condition. He's a radiation oncologist. Dr. You want to stand for a second? I'll let you give your bio. You're better at
my name is Nima. I'm a radiation oncologist, completing my training at Georgetown. A couple of months from now, I'll be heading up to Boston. I work with Sean Collins, who's truly an expert in the highly focused form of radiation for patients who have localized prostate cancer. He's also advancing the way that we treat prostate cancer for patients who have recurrences that are in isolated areas and can be treated curatively. And that's our really, the mission is that no man should die of prostate cancer. And if we can avoid that by early diagnosis proper definitive treatment and subsequently close follow-up, and making sure that the patients are receiving the right type of imaging, right type of surveillance, the right type of care after they've been treated, that we should not have patients die of prostate cancer. Bad disease is bad disease, but bad systems can be fixed. I'm here for all your questions, and I want to take a moment to thank you for inviting me, and thank you all for your service and taking care of those who serve us.
So, questions, comments?
Did you say College at Georgetown?
Yeah, Sean Collins, yeah. If you know him. He sure does, yeah. He has a twin brother who's also a radiation oncologist, yeah.
Is John Lynch still?
He sure is, yeah. It's the same gang. The two of them are young, though, so they're gonna be around for a long time.
Right.
That's why I have to get a job somewhere else. If I have a shot in treating prostate cancer anywhere in DC, Virginia area, I better find a different city, at least 200 miles north.
John Lynch put me on package surveillance for 18 years.
So, at what point did you stop surveying?
7 years ago.
So you got treated. How was that?
I didn't get a treatment. I went to Georgia.
Okay.
Radiotherapy in Georgia.
Okay.
You familiar with that?
Not familiar, but I'm familiar with radiation for prostate cancer.
Well, it was seed implants and radiation.
Okay. And you're doing okay?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's great to hear. Yeah, so there are different types of radiation, if you like.
Please,
Just
yeah,
briefly
yeah.
about that. So the decision tree is as such. You get a PSA, you decide if you want to act on the PSA. The PSA can tell you there's something maybe alarming going on in your prostate, so you might have to put a needle in there. Sometimes you can just watch the PSA, that's called active surveillance, but typically those patients should have received the prostate biopsy. So if anyone tells you that you're on active surveillance without doing the biopsy, that's not the appropriate thing. Looking at PSA alone is not active surveillance, because PSA does not diagnose the cancer. It's the biopsy that diagnoses the cancer. Now, certain patients that have low-risk prostate cancer can be watched closely for several years, up to 19 years it turns out. Other patients, however, may not be as lucky. We do have a threshold beyond which we start treating patients definitively, and I can tell you a bit about that. So the decision goes as such. You can get it cut out, you can get it radiated, or you can get it cut out and unfortunately get radiated afterwards. And in both instances, you could get something called hormone therapy, where they reduce the amount of hormones that feed the prostate. Now, all of these treatments have their side effects, and we believe at this point in time, depending on your health, your goals in life, and your quality of life, you choose what is the best way to go about your treatment. Because we have pretty effective treatments. Surgery is a good idea for someone who wants to get it cut out, and they don't have certain fears about the side effects of surgery. Any operation has risk associated with it, and it's best to be heard from a urologist, but they can be as simple as reacting poorly to anesthesia, to having leakage afterwards, having some health dysfunction. Same thing with radiation. Radiation can have the same exact problems. It could affect your urination, it could affect your bowel movements for years to come, and it certainly will decrease your libido and sexual health as well. And in addition to all of those, you can potentially get hormones, and hormones have all of those effects magnified, specifically the sexual health dysfunction. So the key to prostate cancer is to identifying it early, to treating it definitively, and watching the patients after they're treated. The radiation options are very diverse now. You could get radiation seeds placed inside your prostate. You could get radiation from outside of your body using regular radiation treatments, which can extend up to 9 weeks of daily treatment Monday through Friday. You can shorten that treatment to maybe 7 weeks. You can even shorten it further to 1 week of treatment. And that all has to do with who is delivering radiation, who is capable of delivering that type of radiation. And in the right hand, all of these treatments should be effective. It becomes a choice of quality of life and the side effect profile of the treatment for your patients. Surgery, there are a couple of ways of doing the surgery. I'm not a surgeon. I'll be the first one to admit that. But you can do it robotically, you can do it open. They, again, have to do with expertise of the surgeon and the ancillary staff in the hospital, which provide the surgery benefit from radiation to a bone metastasis or an area that's causing you symptoms or problems. So that's generally the overview of all of this. There's a lot of talk about you should get screened. There's a lot of talk about if you're screened and you're positive for cancer, whether you should get treated. These are the nuances that I leave up to the physician and you to talk about, but I do think these are important that every patient should share in that decision-making process, because we have a lot of options on prostate. So go ahead.
Yeah, I'm very blessed. I've had the PSA, but I've never diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah. But I have several friends that I speak with, and they share with me about the biopsy process and the pain and all of the things that come along with that in terms of infections and all of that. Are there any things out there on the horizon that may speak to different procedures, something that may not be as directly?
Yeah, on the horizon, yes. Is it actively pursued for patient care? Unfortunately, not at this very moment yet. So it still requires a needle into the prostate and all the risks that come with putting a needle inside your body, deep inside your body, to remove the tissue, which, as you mentioned, is pain, discomfort, minor bleeding, as well as infection. A real risk of infection that could become serious. So that's one of the reasons why people like to maybe not react immediately to PSAs. They sometimes wait to make sure that it's not related to any other thing. But I also think that we've gone a little overboard with ignoring PSA elevations and not addressing that. And that's, I think that's the reason, and this is my private opinion, I think that's the reason why you're seeing no metastatic prostate cancer patients, stage 4 prostate cancer patients, because we kind of let go of screening patients early on. So you're absolutely right. Every procedure comes with risk. And there are ways of looking for cancer alternative, but at the moment that hasn't proven to be the case for prostate.
So what is that? I'm trying to figure out how that fits into your process.
So CyberKnife is so radiation comes out of really nothing. It's an accelerated ray of light. That's what it is, electromagnetic radiation. It's a photon that's very high energy. So you can get it from a conventional linear accelerator, or you can get it from a very advanced machine that's built on top of a robotic arm with a small linear accelerator that emits the radiation very precisely with multiple. You've seen those Mercedes-Benz factories with those robots that they run. That's in effect the same robot carries a cancer-fighting radiation on top of it, and it can move in different directions between different angles to avoid different parts of your body that may experience different types of side effects. But it also can deliver radiation extremely effectively in a focused fashion, a high dose of radiation. And in my opinion, the most interesting part of that machine, I use its unbiased, I'll be the first one to admit, is that it can track the movement of your body. So you have, in my opinion, lower risk of getting the radiation affecting your bladder or your bowel. So it directs the radiation to that area, but most importantly, it doesn't miss the cancer. That's the feature about it.
So basically, it's just a tool to go down a radiation path, that's correct.
Certain places can deliver it using the CyberKnife device, which I think is the best device to deliver it because I like it. Again, this is a private personal preference, but also it can be delivered with different machines. It requires different techniques, but you do have to go somewhere where they have expertise to do it. You don't want to be the person they're trying. I mean, you could be, and someone has to be, but you know there are ways of going about it effectively and find the right people for this problem. The right person for brachytherapy, the right person for CyberKnife, the right person for proton therapy. These are critical decisions. So mortality from prostate cancer is actually quite rare. But that doesn't mean that people don't die of prostate cancer. The majority of people who have prostate cancer die of other causes. So I think the average is very close to the normal average of people who have heart disease or diabetes, maybe slightly lower. But the average person with prostate cancer is expected to live their full life with prostate cancer if it comes back, or otherwise live it without it.
So that one you just mentioned, is there a gold seal they put the seal in?
increases your net worth because they're little gold seeds, right? So
The nice part is
your
that
net
we
worth
don't-
goes up just a little bit. when
We
you
don't
get those
ask
in
for
there,
that,
right?
so you can.
Yeah, right.
Now, I got one more question. What's your feeling about high food?
What's my feeling? I don't have one.
Huh?
I don't have one. I don't have feelings about it.
Oh, so you,
I'm not gonna tell you how I feel about it.
you don't like?
You know,
You just told me.
I think you're a smart man, so.
I have a question for Mike.
Yes, sir.
Early on in the slide, you talked about DNA sequencing for,
Yes, sir.
for diagnosis. Does that same rule apply with Agent Orange Vietnam veterans?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you're eligible for that DNA sequencing. And you just have to ask, your primary care guy is supposed to be able to order it. If not, just go to the urologist or the oncologist. And it's through a study being done by Dr. Matt Reddick, who I can give you if they have a question, his study is out, it's in every VA hospital, and they just have to go to I think the oncologists are really where it's coming from.
The medical.
Yeah, the medical oncologist would have access to that study, but yeah, they just take, and there's two types, there's two levels. You get either, if you've had a biopsy, which if you haven't, they want the tissue from the biopsy, because they'll test that, and then they also will take your blood and they'll do a sequencing on the blood as well. So they want the metastasized, cancer. That's one of the studies they're looking at, and they also the blood.
Yeah, we do, especially with Harry, he does a lot with veterans. I thought that would be a great topic to take back to the support meeting this year. Most of the guys in attendance are veterans.
Yeah.
And that would be heck of that'd be information to take back to them.
If you want, I've got your stuff, I'll send you the briefing on, that Matt's got a good briefing on what's going on in that program in the VA, and I'll send it over to you.
Good.
Yeah, sure.
It's a great study. I know both Nick Nichols and Matt Raddick and Leroy Seekers together frequently. And that is an incredible study. I highly encourage anyone who is able to undergo that study. It's going to be a wealth of information that's going to help us, all of us, who treat prostate cancer for.
What's the
DNA sequencing.
okay, the second bullet in this slide.
And once you're, now you're biopsied and you're positive, sign up in the VA and do your sequencing.
I noticed it was, they'll do it here, the mistake is it looked like it was Texas, Houston, some of the cells.
I'll do it anywhere.
Do it anywhere?
Anywhere, yeah. Any VA medical oncologist has access to it. And again, if you want questions about CyberKnife, I've been through it twice now, so
Okay.
I'm very familiar with it, intimately. Yes.
So, Vietnam veterans who have not come under VA care yet, which probably aren't too many left, but anyway, and they find out they've got prostate cancer and they were in country, that's like one of the criteria for being eligible for VA care, is that correct? But basically, you've been exposed to Agent Orange and you're...
Well, it's a criteria for Agent Orange to be classified as Agent Orange. And if then the Agent Orange now is broken down to year and location as to when you were in country.
Okay, all right, so, but that is, like, you don't have to have multiple disabilities to get under VA care if you were exposed to Agent Orange at the particular times that they identified as...
So Mission Act changed the criteria for care in the VA too, to be eligible, right?
Yeah, right.
All you have to have is your wonderful DD 214, okay, and a honorable discharge. That's it. They don't care about time in service, time in grade, where you served, 20 years or 2 years, you're eligible for VA benefits. That changed as of June of last year. Okay, so it's, tell all your buddies, you don't have to retire to get VA, you don't have to go to Vietnam with Agent Orange. If you've got a DD 214 and it says honorable in the bottom left corner, you have access to VA benefits. And that was a huge change that you did to Congress for passing that. But also you now have GI Bill education benefits for life now. Those don't expire anymore. And they've actually retrofit a bunch of those in there. You've got new VA home loan mortgage rates that are now being supplemented and guaranteed by the VA. So you go down and they raised the upper limit now, for the loans. I can't remember what it was, but they raised them up. And you have new burial benefits and what's the other? Education, I think, well, those are the big high points, but they changed a lot of that stuff, so you're all eligible. Anybody that ever served with a uniform on is eligible for paid benefits.
What is it, 90 days?
Yeah. 90-day minimum, yeah.
I heard that, I don't know if this is, and I'm sure that you may know the answer. You're 100% disabled, you apply for a tractor,
You can, yes,
you can.
yeah. You can. I'll tell you, my experience here, what I'm finding with the physicians out there is that they would rather have, if they're in the Mission Act program, they would rather have you do that than use TRICARE. TRICARE is having a problem with payment issues right now. And it's, and they're not guaranteed, TRICARE rates are not guaranteed Medicare reimbursement rates. So they'll negotiate them for lower reimbursement rates if you're using TRICARE. Well, it's 4 o'clock. I see the bell is on. I'm here. I'll be here for the next couple of days. Anybody has questions, I want all of you guys to sign up as a veteran champion here and help us out with VA and in your local town. So if you got a card, note, I've got all your names and I can track you down. So I'll volunteer you as we get going. So I appreciate your time and efforts today. So thanks.